welcome. Today we have a wonderful guest who I'm so happy to actually have known personally and even played with. It's completely an honor. So her name is Kim Scavone, but you probably actually know her as Kim Ryan. In high school, her name was actually Kimmy Nolan Ryan because she has had such an impressive career herself. She was New York State Player of the Year. She was a full scholarship athlete to Boston College, where she was also Rookie of the Year her freshman year. She was Pitcher of the Year her senior year. She was inducted into the BC Hall of Fame in 2014, which is unbelievable. She also had the single season and career strikeout record for BC, which is unbelievable, especially in that conference, which is great. But now she coaches at Meredith College, which is a Division III college down in Raleigh. And it's got one of the biggest conferences. Right now, 19 teams, one of the largest conferences in the country. And guess what, ladies? They came in first last year, 17-5 in conference record. Just amazing. So welcome, Kim. There's so many things that we want to talk to you about today and just kind of pick your brain on. But one of the things that I really wanted to discuss right up front is the choice that people are making so much more now to attend Division III schools, and like what Division III schools offer a lot of the time that Division II and Division I schools can't.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the reason is just the growth of our sport. Since, back when you and I played together, there are just so many more talented athletes that have the skill set needed to play at the collegiate level, and there aren't that many more programs starting up at the college level. So there's just so much more talent. So the opportunities for them to attend the highest level, they have to start looking at kind of their options earlier on in the process. And I think the main thing that I think of when athletes choose Division III is the balance that it provides. The competition, it's extremely competitive. It is a lot of fun. I haven't really noticed a huge difference between the Division I to the Division III level in terms of the competition. Obviously, with pitching, it might not be as dominant, which is actually why I think it's a little bit more fun. It's a very offensive game, but just the balance it provides them, the student athletes, to choose their majors and graduate on time with high GPAs, participate in all the things the campus culture has to offer, study abroad. Our college is a big proponent of that. We have a campus over in Italy, actually, so they want to make sure that students do that. So that is something that you can do both. You can study abroad, and also have a great collegiate career. We have one of our seniors this year. She's a communications major, and she is currently interning with our local news station and is a sideline reporter for NC State, UNC, Duke football games. So she's out there on TV, already living her dream while still being a student athlete in college. So it gives you a lot of opportunities to balance all the things you're interested in addition to playing softball. So
that's awesome. And I think that's something that not everyone thinks of when they consider their collegiate experience. But, there are some majors that are simply not possible if you're playing college, if you're playing Division I college softball. Like some majors are essentially off limits because of the time constraints on your schedule with like lifting.
Yeah,
and
just any of the the internships or the practicals, or there's certain majors where just the time wise it just won't work out as well. Whereas at Division III we're only allowed a 5-week season in the fall. And then we don't come back together as a team until January. So there's a ton of time for, especially in the fall semester, for spring sport athletes to participate in those things. I have a current student athlete who's doing her student teaching right now, so we didn't see much of her in the fall, but she was all region last year, and I expect her to come back and she'll be back in plenty of time to get ready for the season, and she'll have her student teaching out of the way and can graduate on time with her licensure and be ready to go. So I think student teaching at the Division I level, you might have to stay an extra semester or something like that. It would probably be a little bit more difficult.
That's really, really a key point. Now, what I want to emphasize is, so a lot of people are looking at that and thinking, well, and Division III means I don't have to work as hard, which is obviously not even the least bit true.
Yeah.
I feel like the difference that most of my Division III athletes have commented on, especially those who go to very high academic schools, is that a lot of it captain's practice, or you're putting in time in the weight room on your own. So can you speak to that and how like you maintain that high like work ethic even where where you have a limited amount of time to work with your athletes?
Yeah, I mean, I think a successful Division III athlete has to be someone who's self-motivated, who's driven, and I think part of the reason that works out so often for us is they're not playing for any sort of scholarship. They're playing because they love the sport and they want it to continue for another 4 years. So just naturally, those are the types of student athletes that we have. Because yes, most of the work in the off season outside of our 15 practices is, you know, with captains in small groups or on their own. I know the pitchers and catchers kind of get together on their own. They have access to the facilities, but unfortunately they don't have access to their coaches. So it has to be completely from within, and we can give them programs to work on, but it can't be required or monitored in any way. A rule that they changed back in 2012, which has been wonderful for us, is that you can work with a certified NCAA strength and conditioning coach throughout the year. So you do have access to someone to make sure, you know, you're working on injury prevention and using proper form and on a program that is going to help you and be sport specific. So they do have access to our strength and conditioning coach. But again, that can't be mandatory. So they got to show up because they want to be there. We can't keep track of who's going. So.
But now I think that, well, that to me makes a huge difference because
it's been awesome.
I talk to my athletes about this all the time, and I suggest like several programs to keep them in their best frame of mind. I mean, I think for most pitchers, they lose 2 to 3 miles an hour by not engaging in some sort of strength conditioning or cross training. So what do you find like is sort of a good program for your athletes, for your pitchers in terms of strength and conditioning?
Well, oh, my phone just moved there. Well, we keep them on a similar program to the rest of the athletes. So just making sure we're working on core strength and explosive movements and, you know, lower body and all of those things, but just making sure we're protecting their shoulders, you know, doing, you know, smaller rotator cuff stuff, just nothing crazy overhead or really heavy. And then just making sure that they're also just in pitching shape. So they're doing their power workouts, you know, 3 times a week. They're working on spins on separate days so that, you know, they can really, really push it and not worry about location and you know, when they're doing those power workouts and really make sure they're maxing out and throwing hard. And then just making sure they're, you know, just overall staying in shape with their cardio and things like that. So we have a program that our team does, and then our pitchers have some additional cardio, and we try to hide some cardio in our the pitcher. They don't really think of it as
nobody likes cardio.
By the end of it, they know that they got some cardio. So. But additional cardio is always key for pitchers, and just making sure we're protecting their arms and things like that.
I just want to say that I did not bribe Kim to talk about power workouts right now. Like, that's just something that she said naturally, ladies. So, because in the off season, I always like to talk about, like, you should be throwing for power at least exactly what Kim said 3 times a week. So, tell us a little bit about, like, what a power workout, like, would consist of for your team, like, with pitching.
Okay, well, like I said earlier, I like to take out spins on the days that we're working on power, because pitchers tend to get, you know, frustrated when they're not hitting their spots or their movement's not exactly where they want it to be. And I just want them focusing on, you know, getting stronger, getting in pitching shape. So we'll take out the spins. I usually add change-ups somewhere into a power workout just so they can work on just being more deceptive, because, you know, during your power workout, you're trying to throw hard, so you're moving full speed. So we will mix in change-ups with those workouts. But just a ton of core strength, a ton of leg drive workouts, long toss, like I said, cardio, things like where you do 1, 2, 3s, where you pitch and you run and sprint, and then you pitch twice and you sprint twice, and you pitch 3 times and you sprint 3 times, mixing in some running inside of it, so they're pitching through fatigue, long toss, all the fun, crazy leg drive drills that you can, you know, kind of make up on the fly sometimes to make them drive off a little. But I have my pitchers. They have 4 separate power workouts, and each one focuses on a different thing, whether it's, you know, leg drive or arm speed, weighted ball stuff, and they can tweak the sets based on kind of their level, and that they have goals for each of the drills. Like, you know, when you get back in January, this is how many sets of this drill you should be able to do without being too fatigued. So it's kind of what we do with that, and then we'll work, maybe 2 other days a week on just spins, making sure that.
Okay, I'm just going to tell you guys, Kim and I did not go to the same pitching instructor in high school, but notice exactly how she's broken it up. Like, I love this, where you have lower body some days, and then you have, you're talking about like overall speed on other days, and then arm speed, like, I love that, because I feel like certain athletes tend to be, let's say, pretty, like I have a couple athletes very strong with their legs, but then they'll tend to slow down their upper body. You know what I mean? Or sometimes where you might throw a little bit better with resistance. So I just think that's so important what Kim's, touching on there. So please write that down, because you need to address really all components, and you want to really make sure they're explosive. That's why when we do the Elite Pitchers Blueprint, right, we focus 3 days a week on speed, but everything, all different drills to hit all different aspects. I love that so much. I love too, something that Kim, you probably tell she's like the most amazing, like nicest person in the world, but something that she did even in high school, which I think most high school students, this isn't even on their radar, but she has always been big into service projects, helping people in need and things like that. And that's something she has continued with her athletes in college. So tell us a little bit about that and why that's important to you.
Yeah, I think it was a big foundation of the high school program. I went to Bayshore High School, and our coach, Jim Scavone, was the social worker for the school. So we were always involved in the projects that he had going for the high school with community outreach and serving others. So it was just something that I was kind of, just integrated into at a young age. And I just think it's so important for athletes. We are so fortunate. We have so many opportunities. We have such a big support system around us, being members of a team with our coaches and our families, that I just think it's really important to give back. So I try to instill that in my athletes and make sure that we're, engaging in service projects in the community, whether it's on campus or off campus. This year I took over the SAC as a SAC advisor. So I'm the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. And so it's kind of student government for student athletes. We're the voice for the student athletes, or I should say, they are the voice for the student athletes on campus, and I'm just their advisor. But also just making sure that Meredith College athletes are giving back to the community. Right now, we are participating in our conference initiative. It's called Cans Across the Conference. It's a giant can drive. So all the teams and all 19 of them get together to try to have a little competition to see which school can get the most cans donated. So that's what we're working on right now. But I just think it's really important. There's so many activities and things that. Even though we're very busy as athletes, and I know these kids are very dedicated and working, there's enough time to take some time out of your day and kind of dedicate yourself to something other than just softball. So.
I think that's so important. I think, honestly, everybody has the time to dedicate, even if it's just a very small amount. And I want you guys to think about that a minute. You have 19 teams in the conference, and the cumulative effect that they can have on just making the world better. That's completely substantial. And then if all of those players go on to just in their daily life, even just donate an hour a week of their time, help other people. We're not talking just about softball here. We're talking about the far-reaching impact that you can have on the world as a better person.
Yeah.
But I also think volunteering helps you to be a better teammate, because you finally get that idea of selflessness. And I think it's very hard sometimes, because we have, especially as pitchers, you feel like everything is on you. There's a lot of pressure. But in the sense that if you learn to think about others first, you think about your teammates first, it's a very different situation. So.
Yeah, and by doing that, you learn a lot about yourself as well, which helps you in all aspects of your life. I think the key is perspective, and just kind of stepping outside of your bubble or your focus or, your goals, and kind of trying to see things from your teammates' perspective, or, someone outside of your program. It just gives you a different viewpoint and kind of helps you learn a little bit more about yourself along the way. So it can help on the field, even though you're helping people off the field.
I love that. That's just such a great thing. Yeah, everything you do to make you a better person makes you a better person both on and off the field. It's not compartmentalized,
Absolutely.
That's very so. I do want to talk a little bit about recruiting.
Okay.
One of my very strong memories of travel ball, and I do have a lot of them. But I very distinctly remember like us having, you know, this very, very strong team. And essentially, I mean, Kim has always been just an amazing, dominant pitcher. But I do remember at one tournament, you saying something to the effect of, like, you were concerned that no one was going to want you as an athlete and no one was going to, you know, recruit you. And I remember, like, my jaw dropping, my heart dropping, thinking, like, how is this possible? You know, she's, you know, completely dominant in her conference, like striking people out left and right here. Like, no one's getting strong hits off of her. But if you could talk a little bit about just that emotion, because I know that's something I went through in the recruiting process. I think that's something that everybody goes through in the recruiting process, that it's like, wow, even though you're really like one of the best pitchers probably ever to come off of Long Island, you know, you still have that moment of doubt, like, wow, like, what's happening, you know?
Right. I mean, I think that speaks to the age of the athletes that are going through this process. And I feel bad saying this, but I think you and I were really fortunate that the process was nowhere near as intense and early as it is now for athletes today, even though we were even a little bit older than the athletes that are trying to make these decisions now. But it's still, you know, young women who are learning about self-confidence and learning from their mistakes and learning from their successes. So even pitchers who are, you know, seeing success, you're still going to have a little bit of doubt and insecurity. And the recruiting process can bring that out because you see other people, you know, making their commitments and getting kind of your goal that you're searching for. And, you know, there's some concern until it happens for you. But I think it's just all part of the process, and you just have to go out there and know that every day you're out there, it's an opportunity. And if you have a bad game, you'll get another opportunity, and you have to make the most of it and not bring that with you. For me, I had been injured going into the summer before my junior year, which was back then was a big year. We didn't commit as freshmen back when we were in high school, but I've been injured, so I was worried about how that was going to affect my opportunities because I think the word was out that I was hurt. So I think that was part of the reason I was a little concerned. And I remember vividly going out to guest play with a team, not our Long Island Chargers. I went out to play with the Beach Girls out in Arizona. And there was, I want to say, about 15 coaches that had been waiting to see me when I was not pitching full time, all at one game. So I think back to that was probably the most high pressure moment of my entire career because I felt like I didn't realize they had looked at stats and had probably seen film and had seen me pitch before. I thought it all came down to that one performance. And looking back, obviously, it did not. But as a 16-year-old kid, I thought that was my moment to shine. So it was a little nerve-wracking.
So tell us how you got through that, because I think that's like a similar mindset like that a lot of people go through.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to take it one day at a time and just trust that you've put the work in. That if you're deserving of that scholarship, that means that you've put the work in, and that you need to rely on that. And you need to know that, you know, you've hit those pitches with your pitching coach. You've made that pitch work in the cage 100,000 times. That you can do it, and you can't let that self-doubt come into your mind while on the field. I think part of the thing that helped me is I just really liked striking people out, and I put that goal every single time. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I wasn't okay if they hit the ball and put it in play. My goal was always to get it past them. So I just kind of made sure that I was remembering that it was just a game and that it was something I really enjoyed doing, and just to go out there and have fun and really trying not to let the bigger picture, you know, in your mind when you're out there in the circle, because the game's hard enough. So you got to trust yourself and have fun.
That's very smart. I like that. You're the first person to ever say that, you know, to think about it just as separate, like take the recruiting out of the picture. You know?
Yeah, you can't. There's too much going on in the game. You're a leader out there on the field. You know, your whole team's looking to you. It's a sport. It's a team sport. When you're out there pitching, it's about, you know, helping your team and doing best you can. If you're constantly worried, like I was that one day, about how many coaches are around and who's watching you, it's going to take away from, you know, just what you're out there doing, which is playing for the love of the sport. And good things really do come when you're having a good time and doing the right thing. So trying to think about it while you're out there. There's a girl with a weapon in her hand trying to hit the ball. If you're worried about coaches are watching you, you're going to be in trouble. You got to focus on the next pitch, not the next 4 years of your life.
I love that. Oh my God, guys, that's probably some of the best recruiting advice I'd ever heard. I knew you would have it because that's the type of person you are. But that is some of the best recruiting advice I've ever heard, because I think we tend to almost do the opposite sometimes, and we tend to make everything about the macrocosm of recruiting. It's hard not to sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean that's actually one of the reasons why I chose. I was a Division I coach right out of college. I loved working at that level, but recruiting is one of the reasons I really love coaching at. Oops, I lost you. Sorry.
Okay, you have a nice ceiling. It's clean.
Somebody ceiling. At the Division III level, because it's the pace of it has slowed down a little bit. You don't need to make those commitments, and I'm not to knock Division I. I know there's reasons behind all of the things that are going on in recruiting right now, but at Division III, I don't give my athletes deadlines. I want them to choose Meredith first, and they know there's an opportunity to play softball there. But I want to know that I have a kid who loves the school and is really excited and ready to dedicate to a 4-year career. And financially, there are some questions I can't answer until that admissions process has been completed. So it's a slower pace, and I think my athletes get a chance to make the decision based on the whole package and not just a softball offer. So I think sometimes the recruiting process is a little crazy these days.
Oh God, I know. It's one of those things that it could be very overwhelming. I was feeling like parents were so underinformed, and that's why I wrote my whole book on recruiting, because I just felt like, parents starting junior year and being like, yeah, and she wants to play Division I. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. There's just different timelines than there have ever been.
Right.
And it's crazy because when I interviewed Danielle Henderson, and also Michelle Smith, both of them had said if the recruiting environment were as it is now, that neither of them felt like they would have played collegiately, just because they both developed late. What I thought, wow, that was just mind blown.
Yeah, that is crazy to think of, and that's true. I mean, Danielle, I think she went to UMass originally, as a position player. Was she recruited as a pitcher, or was she utility? Because I know she had an amazing career, but she progressed a ton at the collegiate level, and kids these days aren't they're not given that opportunity. You need to for the elite level, you need to be ready as a freshman or a sophomore at the latest.
It's crazy. And Danielle didn't start pitching until she was 14. And she went to college, I think, with one pitch. So she was recruited as a pitcher, but she went to college, I think, with a fastball, and I'm not even sure what other pitch, actually.
Yeah, I remember, I'll never forget my favorite story. She came back and we were doing workouts in the winter, and she must have been home for Christmas break, and I was just learning a rise ball. I'm a few years younger, and I spent the entire winter throwing it into the rafters of the gym, thinking I would never get it down. And she came in and was doing football drills with a rise ball, and she threw a full-size football with a perfect spiral underhand across the entire length of the gym. And I was like, okay, I need to get to work. I can't do that. I still can't. I have really tiny hands, girls. You can still spin the ball with tiny hands, but you got to work really hard at it.
Oh my God, I totally love that. So obviously you have some really great things that you incorporate on the mental game. So can you give us a little tip about what do you think is really the most important element for pitchers specifically in that mental game?
Definitely composure. There are so many things that are going to affect your presence on the mound, your mood, where your focus is, whether it's the score of the game, the weather, what the other team is doing, what the umpire is doing, how your teammates are performing, and the only thing that you can control is you and your performance. So not letting those things factor in to how you're feeling out there, I think, is the most important part. And just making sure that that everyone is looking to you and not to let any of those things rattle you. And even if you are a little rattled, don't let them see it. The more composed and focused you can stay, the easier your job definitely becomes, because there's a lot of things you can't control. So focus on the things that you can.
I love that. Yes. You see this awesome advice? This is why Kim's been completely dominant. So this has been just an amazing thing, girls. Like, this is one of these interviews that you are going to have to replay and watch again and again, especially if you are, struggling with that decision of where to play, and what college or colleges might be most suitable to you. Look at all this from someone who's played at the highest level, as coaching at a super high level, Division III. Like, this is great information. So, any closing thoughts for our pitchers out there?
Just from a recruiting standpoint, I just want ladies, just make sure you look at all of your options and think about what you want when those 4 years are over. You can have an amazing softball career at any level. I played Division I, and I look back and I had a wonderful experience. And then sometimes I look at the experience my girls are having, and I'm a little jealous because theirs is completely different in terms of the balance and the things that they're able to participate in. So no matter what level you choose, just make sure you kind of take a step back and get a new perspective. Ask a ton of questions. Ask athletes that are playing at that level. Ask athletes who are done. And just really have focus on what you want life to be after your 4-year career of softball is over. Because there's a few opportunities after college, but for the most part, your career is going to be in something else. So just try to focus on that when trying to make these big decisions. Your college decisions should be based on a lot of things, not just softball. So.
Oh, that's exactly it. I did not bribe her to say this, girls. We just are thinking the same way. So, Kim, thank you so much. We're totally honored to have you here.
Of course.
Yes, this has been amazing. Guys, look up Meredith Softball. Very, very good stuff here. And we wish you guys luck in this upcoming season. Sounds like you're going to kill it.
I hope so. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Talk soon.